Hello everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you the branching model which has worked for me. I think in software development, branching is the default necessary for every project, and that's why I thought it will be good to record for the others to take benefit from it. Generally, Git flow is the most advanced and preferred branching model that is followed in the industry. However, I found some challenges with that. So here is another branching model that has worked for me and easy for team to follow. Just sharing it, considering it will be useful for others. I think for understanding purpose, I took the 4 week release cycle and the same 4 week for the development cycle. And there is a 2 week difference between the sprint and release, so that after the development is complete, you take 2 weeks to do the QAT, UAT, and all the sign off and go no go, and then you release the product to production. The gap between UAT and the gap between sprint and release, shorter is the better. Now, whatever the branching model that I am showcasing, generally it is also known as master branch development, or I sometimes call it as three branch model. So most of the time the active development happens on the master branch during the sprint cycle, and at any point of time there are three branches, maximum three branches active: the master branch, the release branch, and the development branch. I'll explain you all these three when it comes into the picture and when you create those branches. Let's look at the sprint and release life cycle first. So we have, like, here there is a 4 week of sprint and 4 week of release. Now sprint ends. After that there is a 2 week between the development ends and the product is released to production. So let's look at, this is sprint 2 and corresponding release 2, sprint 3 and corresponding release 3. Releases in the agile software development world is a short fixed cycle of continuous delivery, right? So 4 weeks, every 4 weeks we go and release to production, like that. And the sprint is the corresponding development timeline for the release. Now let's look at the branching with respect to sprints and releases. So during the sprint, the development happens on the master branch. So for sprint 2 and release 2, the development happened on the master branch during the 4 weeks of the sprint, which is very important to understand, right? So you are developing on the master branch. Now, when the sprint ends, we create the release branch. So we say, let's say this is sprint 2 and release 2. So I'm creating release version 2 branch. Now, once we have the branch created, the fixes or any bug fixes to be done happens in the release branch, which is required to go into the release 2. And correspondingly, you continuously merge the fixes into back to the master, so that master is always up to date with all the changes. If in case you need not required to be merged back, you don't merge back because it is only for that release and the code changed in the master. That's fine. Now, after all the fixes, when the release ends, you deploy the release version 2 branch to production. Sometimes whatever you create as a build is also called at the end of the sprint is also called as release candidate builds. So this is the release candidate, and if there are fixes, we do the fixes, and then at the end of the release we deploy to production. Now during, let's say in the week 4 of the sprint, sometime we start the development of the next sprint because we don't have any story which will be finished within the sprint. So those stories development starts. Now we can't do that development on the master branch. The release is not yet cut. So what we have to do is, like, we have to create a develop branch version 3. That means I'm doing the development for release 3, and then this is like very short-lived branch. Now as soon as you start the next sprint after the release branch is cut, you are back to the master development for the release 3 here. You also do the merge from the develop version 3 to master, so that master is again up to date with all the changes available, and continue the development on master branch. Again, the same cycle follows. At the end of the sprint, you create release version 3 branch, and after that you do all the fixes in release version 3 and merge the code into the master. The release version 3 branch is deployed to production. Now in case of any post production, let's say we have deployed this version to the production, and during this period we got the some critical bug to be fixed. Now during this period, if we have to do any bug fixes, we will do that bug fixes in production, or sometimes people call it as a hot fix. So we do the fix and we deploy to production in the release version 2 branch itself. So we'll take the new build, we'll do the fix in release version 2 branch, and then it will be deployed as a hot fix to production at any point of time. So if you notice, overall there are 3 branches which are active at any point of time. Here the version 2, the master branch, which where you do the active development, the release cut branch, here the release version 2 and release version 3, and then develop branch. Now develop branch is the branch which is used for only if when you are in the end of the sprint and you are picking up the development for the next release. At that time you use the development branches. Now let's look at these 3 branches. Master branch is continuous development happens throughout on the master branch. The release branch is created at the end of the development sprint. Check in all the bug fixes to be part of the release to release branch. Continuously merge back all the fixes to master so that master is up to date. Also, the release branch is used to do any hot fixes post production releases. Now develop branch is created for development features going in the next release, which is in the previous sprint. Merge to master as soon as the release branch is cut, and then continue the development on the master. The develop branch is very short lived, maximum 1 week or shorter. Now sometimes we have to create the feature branches for any spike or POC or refactoring and all that stuff. Do that, but make sure that those are very short lived branches, otherwise it is very difficult to manage. And I think that's all I had to say about the 3 branches, 3 branch model for the branching strategy for the project. Hope you would like it and follow it on the project. Thank you.